So even if it may be just a meme at the end of the day, I'm liking this whole Yang Gang situation. And I've got my Yang dragon next to me for protection because I was born in the year of the dragon. Anyway, even if people may not agree about the universal basic income thing, I'm glad that they're starting to talk about it, because down the line, this is going to be a bigger issue than it is right now.
I watched the Joe Rogan special with Andrew Yang, and people have been talking about universal basic income and variants of it for a while. That's something he brought up. He said Thomas Paine and Common Sense spoke about it as an option.
I'm happy he's mentioning those people's names. Like, when's the last time you've heard that from a politician?
Well, I remember Milton Friedman used to talk about the negative income tax, which is a form of basic income, and Hayek would also talk about universal basic income. But those two, they thought the government would need to be much smaller. You get rid of Medicare, you get rid of Medicaid, you get rid of the EPA, you get rid of the Department of Education, you just get rid of 80% of it, whatever the number is. I'm pulling one out of the air. But that's how you would pay for it, is instead of redistributing money indirectly, like you give $1 to the government and then they redistribute like back 30 cents on the dollar after their bureaucracy, you would just make it a more one-to-one redistribution.
From what I'm reading, I'm at least happy that this isn't money that's going to be printed. This is already money that's within the economy. I don't understand, though, the value-added tax. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what exactly does he want to do to make sure that, let's say, some rich Silicon Valley folks aren't just going to move all of their money into Ireland tax havens or whatever?
So here's my thing with Andrew Yang, is I actually think his idea is a really bad one. I think that he hasn't quite worked out the kinks. The reason why I'm such a big fan of the Yang Gang and why I love Andrew Yang is he's talking about a pressing issue that is fastly approaching. So automation is coming, job displacement is coming. How are we going to ease these challenges? And I'm a big advocate, some people may know, for trying to pass an amendment to the Constitution, an economic amendment to the Constitution, which would say what the government is and isn't allowed to do to the economy. To ever even accomplish something like that, you need so many other cascading, you can call them cascading, discussions that would lead up to that, right? You need people like Kanye West saying we need to repeal an amendment. You need people like Ali Alexander saying we need an internet amendment. You need people like me or Milton Friedman in the past talking about the economic amendments. You need people talking about, okay, we acknowledge that the Constitution is a living document. It's a decentralizing document. What are systemic problems that can be solved with a simple sentence or two or three? And I think the economic amendment is that. So the reason why I'm a huge fan of the Yang Gang is I feel like he's a prerequisite for elevating the dialogue to even get there.
And I'm also happy that they present it in a memified format, which I think is quite powerful. I do believe in meme magic. I believe that when people see these images, it registers in their head that maybe whatever division may have happened from pro-Donald Trump memes, this one may be something that would bring both the left and the right together. Even if they may not agree on everything, at least it's something that nobody could call out for saying, oh, you're a racist because you support Andrew Yang.
No, he worked in the Obama administration. He's a guy that sees problems coming. He wants to solve them. I mean, he said on Joe Rogan, if people adopt his policies or if people become proactive about solving the problems he's aiming to solve, he'll feel he's done his job. Like, he's not even he's trying to win, but similar to Zoltan, I always say Istvan because that's how he pronounced his name to me, but Zoltan Istvan, he campaigns to spread information, and Andrew Yang is doing the same. Although it does seem like it'd be very hard to argue with, you know, hey, I'm going to give everyone $1,000. Like, what's your argument? What is your argument against $1,000?
Yeah, but it's not just that. He also adds in things like Medicare for all and carbon taxes, things that, while they may sound good on the surface, may have inadvertent consequences that, just like we were talking before about what's going to prevent the rich people from just putting all their money into these foreign places. or how much the load is going to be on the small businesses, as far as how much more are they going to have to pay for it not to be worth it for them to even start a business in the first place. Like, I want to cut a lot of fat out of the system that we currently have, and I don't want anything to be done that's going to make it challenging for people to participate in the economy in the first place. And I don't really know how deep his basic universal basic income would cause this ship to be, to be capsized. But this is something that I want to go over in even more details as we start reading about this stuff, because a lot of it is one layered. People would look at something like $1,000 per month and they think, okay, I'm going to get my chicken tendies, I'm going to get my anime body pillow, and I'm good. I don't really need anything else. I'm going to be able to live a life of being interconnected to the internet, and that's fine as long as it's not something that's going to capsize the system. Like, if we're talking about welfare, for example, from what I understand, things are much better, but when it was first introduced, it caused huge problems in the Black community, because when we had an incentive for husbands not to stay in the household, that caused the breakup of the Black family. And we don't want similar things to happen from this, but I think like $1,000 per month, if you have a choice, and I know that he made that clear, that it's not welfare and $1,000, it's either or. So if you go for the $1,000 option, then you're not going to be getting the extra welfare benefits, food stamps, things like that. So that already seems a little bit better for me. But again, I have to look at the math and I have to see, okay, how much is this whole thing going to cost, and how many percentage brackets are going to have to be taxed how much in order for this to be sustainable long term.
The carbon tax gives me nightmares. That is the worst idea I've ever heard. Like, I have a zero tolerance policy for the carbon tax. I'll just say, frankly, when I heard Andrew Yang describe how he would approach the funding of the universal basic income, I was extraordinarily skeptical. I don't think it's feasible the way he's proposing it. But I do think that a form of it is feasible. And that's why when he says, hey, I'm trying to focus on a problem and solve it, and if someone else picks up the mantle or runs with my idea, I'll feel like I did my job. And I'm like, I get it. I get where he's coming from. But what was that? What else did you say besides the carbon? Because the carbon tax is the worst idea I've ever heard. It is an immoral idea.
All right. The second one is Medicare for all.
Yeah. I get it. I want to have and to be able to afford healthcare as well. I'm young. People like me don't need the healthcare system as much as people that are like 60, 70, 80, 90, right? I think a lot of people have a little too much anxiety when it comes to healthcare. Young people, they're thinking a lot about the future and they're worried about things they're not going to be able to afford. And so they say, if only I had more cash, right? If only we were redistributing the funds better. And I think it's the wrong direction. So we need to crush the prices. So the way that the government tug of war has been going, it's been more centralization, it's been more subsidization, it's been more redistribution. And these are things that actually inflate prices. They drive the prices up. You get a more expensive product. It's less efficient. And I think that while I'm in the same boat. Like, I share the sentiment of wanting to be able to afford miraculous healthcare, but we're not going to get it, and the system is not going to get good if we think that socializing it is the answer. And I was listening to people tell me, oh, the healthcare in Canada is great, the healthcare in Europe is great, the healthcare in all these countries where they socialize universal healthcare, it's so much better. One of the things I say is you have to also pay attention to the people it's hurting, right? You can't just pay attention to the anomalies of the people that are saying, oh, like, I got a really great deal, and I wouldn't have gotten that deal otherwise. Like, you don't want to just listen to the highlights. Absolutely. Right? You want to listen to the story of the person with the 2-year-old who wants to, can I take my 2-year-old to America so we can see a different doctor? And they're like, no, sorry, your kid's just going to have to die here. And I tell people, Venezuela has a socialized healthcare system, and they have amazing healthcare for their elites. Like, people will travel from all over the world to go to Venezuela for superior healthcare. There's people starving in the street. So if the people that Andrew Yang is appealing to with his universal basic income is also trying to appeal to those same people with a universal basic healthcare. It is going to crush them. That kind of stuff will crush the people it's intended to help, in my opinion.
But either way, I'm still happy that this conversation is happening right now, and it's not just mudflinging. It's not this identity politics BS that has been going on for a long time, where that seems to be the front and center conversation all the time. Oh, you're a Trump supporter, so you must be a racist, or you're a Bernie supporter. Well, actually, as far as Bernie Sanders goes, his policies are very nakedly clear and pretty extreme, in my opinion. So I'm happy that instead of talking about Bernie, people could now talk about somebody like Andrew Yang and have a deeper conversation about this.
I love it. Well said.